Hello there, my name is Jordan Leroy Hansen, also known as LeDev, and now we're on to the part 3 of our card spoiler review for the Hearthstone expansion Rise of Shadows. We got a few cards, we're going to review, compare with other cards that are currently in Standard, and hopefully get some very insightful opinion on the impact and maybe even power level of some of the upcoming cards. Nevertheless, like I said before, I'm going to try to update these on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So Wednesday, it's been a few days. There's been a lot of card spoiler. If you need to see how my rating score goes, you can check my first video, just the first few minutes, how I explain the rating and such, and then come back to this. Nevertheless, though, let's just get going and start with a warrior card, which is the Clockwork Goblin, which is a 3-mana free mech, which is pretty significant, that has the battle cry, the shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. When drawn, it explodes for 5 damage. So this is very similar to a card that we have called the Seaformium Bomber, which if we get to it, there we go, does the same effect, but it's 2 less mana with 2 less stats. Overall though, since it's a mech, that's actually relatively fine, since we have cards that synergize with it very well, such as Omega Assembly. We can discover it. We can also use Dr. Boom to discover it as well, which is pretty nifty. So, and the fact that I can have Rush with Dr. Boom Mad Genius is also pretty good. Overall, the stats are decent. You are losing 1 health, which is but the fact that it is a mech does have a lot of better synergies with other cards, such as Magnetize and such. And if this expansion gives us any payoffs for putting more bombs into the opponent's deck, I can see this card seeing play. It's a fine card, though it will take some explosive experimentation. And lucky enough, this set does provide some benefits for playing this card, let's just say. Before we get to those benefits, though, we're going to get on to the next card that I have on the list, which is the Evil Cable Rat. A 2-mana 1/1 neutral beast that has a simple battle cry to add a lackey to your hand. So, look, playing a 2-mana for 1/1 feels bad, though the lackey you can get from it can compensate for it. Surprisingly, a decent turn free play with this and whatever the lackey you get for Arena, or even just maybe for casual play in Constructed. Personally, honestly, I'm just happy to see it as a neutral lackey generator, so other classes who kind of want to toy with the lackey concept can at least toy with it. Granted, I don't know if the card is powerful enough that people would be willing to play a 2-mana 1/1 when there is a lot of better option 2-drops. I mean, heck, 2-drops, people are going to be keeping their eyes more on 2-drops now since Keleseth is rotating out. I mean, for Pete's sake, let's just go to all the 2-drop neutrals. You can play an Acidic Swamp Booge, you can play an Amani Berserker, you can even play Baleful Banker, you can even play this decent taunt to help you against early game aggro. So yeah, there is a lot, I mean heck, even Blood Mage Faunas. There's a lot of better 2-drops compared to Evil Cable Rat, even with the subtle beast synergy, which if it's relevant or not, I don't know. Still, I can't wait to toy with this card, especially one of the brews I kind of want to make is in Shaman is a very janky Shadowwalk Lackey brew. And this card is kind of perfect for at least experimenting with. Though, granted, you do have to compensate for the tempo loss of playing a 2-mana 1/1, which I think is alright, but it's not great, it's just fine. Which makes the card not that great, but in the personal opinion. Though, it's still a cute little rat, chasing after a little piece of cheese. And heck, even a little rat's on it, which makes it kind of adorable. Next up, we go back to warrior cards again. And this one is kind of... let's just get over it. For Dr. Boom Scheme, a 4-mana spell. That's a scheme, so we know that it can accumulate and increase. Gain 1 armor. Okay, if we go by the metric that had been going on with these schemes, where it's if this is a card that is really bad to top deck, Dr. Boom Scheme is a really bad card to top deck, because 4 mana to just gain 1 armor, is horrible. Like, to put it in comparison, like, we're going to need to go to crafting, but just to put it in comparison, Iron Hide. For 1 mana, you gain 5 armor. And this card seen 0 to little bit of play. So, I don't think people would want to spend free extra mana to do that. Now, you can make an argument, and I can see the argument, that if a control archetype is viable, like a very heavy base, like you are going to stall to fatigue Control Warrior, which we have seen in the past, the card is probably fine as a potential one of, but I don't know. I mean, for Pete's sakes, we have the Dr. Boom Hero Power, which once a few turns, we'll just get 7 armor right off the bat. So, and we can also just put some life gain in our deck. I don't, just, this card, just, Besides control decks, I would honestly not recommend playing this card. And when I mean a control deck, I mean a you're dirtling till the opponent fatigues control deck. Because for this to be at its beneficial, you want this to be at least gain you 12 armor, which means you have to dirtle for around 11 turns while this is in your hand. And for many people who play the game of Hearthstone will know, there's just some games that are not going to last over 11 turns. There's some rare exceptions, but not always. So, please, if you're not playing Control, don't play this card. Please. Please let Dr. Boom be a lot more explosive than this card. Please. Okay, actually, we're going to talk about Dr. Boom, which in this case is Blastmaster Boom, a 7-mana warrior legendary that has the battle cry, summon 2 1/1 boom bots for each bomb in your opponent's deck. And it's a 7/7. So now we're kind of seeing how they're trying to use the... We're also going to see another card later after this that is pretty much encouraging warrior to shuffle bombs into the opponent's deck to get little payoffs. Obviously, one of the payoffs is, well, making the opponent have to deal 5 damage of burn damage, which is the obvious payoff. But this is also another second obvious payoff. Honestly, it's just a really cool card. I mean, if you only just have 1 bomb in the opponent's deck, that can make it into the classic Dr. Boom that we all know and love. Like the one that we played consistently through the Goblins and Gnomes expansion. Now, if we could get a couple more, say 2 and 3, then the card gets a teeny little bit ridiculous. Granted, one note that should be notified, it technically maxes at summoning 6 bombs. So, at least if you have free bombs in the opponent's deck. So, if you have an empty board, you got a couple bombs in the opponent's deck, then you can play Dr. Boom and fill your entire board with boom bots. Which, for those who have not played during the Goblins and Gnomes expansion and not endured the horror of Dr. 7, the boom bots are 1-mana 1/1 mechs that have the Death Rattle to deal 1 to 4 damage, up either to 1 or to 4 damage to a random enemy target, or a random enemy character, which is very powerful. I mean, oh boy, I still remember the good days of Dr. Boom. And also the best part is, since we now have more beneficial mech synergies, such as the magnetic, just having those boom bots on there to be able to use to, let's say, attach a Zilliats to it, as they showed in the stream, or maybe even just, oh hey, I could think of the one little mech that we can attach our boom bots to once we play Dr. 7, which is Bronze Gatekeeper. Hey, now we're going to make a 2 sits with Taunt that has the Death Rattle of a boom bot, which is really nifty. And just other little synergies like that. How I really like this card, and my nostalgia just is so tempted to give it amazing. However, this card is dictated by the variance of the opponent's draw, as well as your current board state, which I find just a teeny risky. Still, I think the card is very good, so I'm going to give it the rating of good, and it will be a booming time to have fun with this card. Oh boy, control Bomb Warrior. It should be fun. Speaking of more bombs, here is a card that actually helps us add more bombs into the opponent's deck, which is the Wrench Excalibur, a 4-mana, free 2, that has, after your hero attacks, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. While playing a 4-mana for a free 2 seems high, the effect you get from it is actually pretty powerful. I can see this, to put in comparison why it doesn't seem very strong at first, we're essentially paying 1 more mana for a Fiery War Axe, which is, seeing how much play Fiery War Axe he's played today which is not that much. That's saying something. However, I could see this even while some people will obviously just throw this into the bomb package deck where we throw in all the cards that adds bombs to the opponent's deck and then have Dr. Boom in there as our payoff. I can also see this card potentially in an aggressive deck. Just to deal, hopefully, because if we do the math, just by this weapon alone, you deal 6 damage by the weapon, and then with the 2 bombs to shuffle into the opponent's deck, presuming we don't have any modifiers and such, that's about 16 damage to the opponent's face. And we're not even talking about cards that can actually modify and upgrade the weapon, such as Upgrade, ironically enough, and then make it where you can deal more attacks to the opponent, and then shuffle more bombs in. And it kind of gets to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. Heck, I could see some people just trying an aggro warrior deck where you try the Wrench Caliber, upgrading your weapon using subtle synergies. Heck, you can even just play that 1 5-cost pirate that sees some play, but not always. What's the one I'm thinking about? It's like Greenskin, if I remember correctly. Went past it, so it's like A, B, C, D, E. I thought it was a 5-drop. Oh, Captain's Greenskin. Now I remember why. Yeah, you can play Captain Greenskin and then make your Wrench Caliber more buff to attack more bombs into it. Also, this is also a really cool on-curve play after playing an Augmented Alec, presuming the opponent doesn't destroy it, which, trust me, from how many times I played Thief Rogue with Academic Espionage, if they have it, they will try to destroy the Augmented Alec as soon as you play it, so it's something to keep in mind. Still, it's a nice on-curve play after the Alec, just so you can shuffle 2 bombs into your opponent's deck, which is pretty nifty. I'd say I think Warrior is going to have a good time with this weapon, even though it is still a slightly expensive Fiery War Axe. Hey, it turns out the best way to make us play Fiery War Axe is just to add bombs to it. Who knew? Next up, we're actually going to go to Rogue with actually one of the legendary minions that they have, which is Heist Baron Togwaggle, which is a 7, or not 7, why am I thinking 7? Well, you'll see why in a minute. It's a 6-mana legendary minion that's a 5/5 that has the battle cry, if you control a lackey, choose a fantastic treasure. Now, for people who don't know what the fantastic treasure is, if any of you had the experience of playing with the card Marin the Thoughts, for those who haven't, Marin the Thoughts basically amounts to you summon a treasure chest, and then what you do is you break that treasure chest to essentially get a random treasure, which basically amount to either change your hand and change your hand into legendary minions and provide a taunt, draw 3 cards, they cost 0. Pretty much draw a card and then fill your hands with copies with it. And there was one more. Oh yeah, the Crown, which is discover a legendary minion, summon 3 copies of it. So, but the problem is, while this card's seen some fun play here and there, the catch-22 is it was randomized and the variance was very costly to try out. It still was a fun card to play, don't get me wrong. Now, on the contrary, Heist Baron Togwaggle, you are given the choice of the treasure you choose. So, where do I begin? The synergies that the Rogue class have with this card is kind of freaking absurd. Like, case in point, one of the ones I could think of just right off the bat Spirit of the Shark. So Spirit of the Shark, you're probably going to play it in a Lackey General deck in general, and then you'll get the Lackey Battlecry effects double, and now you have this card that will synergize with it as well, getting the potential of 2 treasures. And then the factor that you are choosing with it, you can choose and it help you can choose which one is best for your current circumstances. Do you have an empty hand? Maybe the card draw one is your best choice. Do you need to get a board presence? Maybe the Golden Kobold is the best choice. Do you just need some legendary minions that you think can finish the game? The Crown. I mean, and the fact that you can, in some circumstances, just bounce even Togwaggle with using cards like Shadow Step? And heck, sure, the Lackey is a cost, but the Lackey cost is not that hard to compensate for. I mean, you could just wait to turn 7, which is why I'm thinking turn 7 mana, because all you have to do, play your Lackey, then play the Togwaggle, boom, instant treasure. Like that. Just, that is a very low cost to just generate some ridiculous value. I mean, now, the catch-22 is that this is a card that's mostly everybody that I know has been emphasizing that it's more for control rogue, if it's a fiend, because mostly control rogue likes value-based orientations. But I think that might be possible, especially with some of the cards we are getting in the expansion. And just a value rogue in general is just going to love this card. I think it's safe to say that this card is very, very powerful. I think we'll see play in the meta. Seriously, it's that good. So, it gets the rating of awesome. Boy, am I going to have fun playing this, and boy, am I going to dread playing against it. Though it does actually make Madame Lazome actually now a lot more tempting to actually hold on until your opponent plays the Togwaggle. That way you can actually steal the treasure. That's a food for thought. Okay, next up, going back to Rogue, we actually got a cool little common card that actually helps support the Burgle Rogue archetype, which is the 4-mana Hitch Clan Burglar, which is a 4-mana 4/3 pirate that has the battle cry, discover a spell from another class. So, we've seen this effect very similar, if you guys remember from Rastakhan's Rumble, the Stolen Steel, which does the similar effect, but it was with weapons. This one gives us a 4-mana 4/3 pirate, and just gives us the ability to discover a spell from an opponent's class. And the best part is from another class rather than the rogue class. The catch-22 when you try to play Burglar Rogue is the mirror match, and the mirror match was kind of nauseating because it was like whoever got Academic Espionage was most likely going to win, because they get the discounted rogue spells while you guys were just stealing rogue spells, and it depended on who had the tempo. This one actually provides you decent tempo. A 4-mana 4/3 does see play a lot more than you think. And just the factor that you get a spell from it, so you create a card from it, is a powerful effect. Now, the catch-22 with the card, I will say personally, is the variance. Now, some people might get into best case mentality when they think discover a spell from another class and be like, let's go to Shaman. I could discover something like the Stormbringer. That would be awesome. But remember, Shaman also has a lot of kind of bad spells, such as Ancestral Healing, which, okay, granted, there's sometimes when this card's good, but Totemic Might, which you don't really want to play in Rogue since you don't have any Talons. And then there's just a variety of power level of spells in all the classes. And all those spells are going to be in your Discover pool. Which I think pretty much lowers the power of the card to a teeny little bit. Just a teeny bit. Because the factor of just that wide of the pool. However, the card does synergize. Since it's a pirate, it would be hard to remiss that it does have synergies with Raiding Party. So it means you can actually, if you can find a way to combo on turn 3, which there are methods, especially if you coin it, or if you do like a 0-cost spell and then play Raiding Party, you can actually draw this and draw the weapon, which I think most people will be wanting to draw from this, Special Cutlass, which then kind of makes sense, because then you could just play, say, the Pirate on turn 4, hopefully discover a cheap spell, and then play the special cutlass, and then play the cheap spell to hopefully just get a better durability and such. It's an option. It's something to consider. Plus, I would be fair to remiss that it does have some synergies with Spirit of the Shark. I mean, getting 2 cards out of it is pretty decent. However, I think this is one of those cards that I'm going to think it's a safe to test out in your burglar type rogue decks, or just even just pirate decks in general. But just be cautious of it. Nevertheless, though, I say the card is good. I think it's a fun card to test out, and hey, anything that fuels more of the Test Greymane engine, fine card in my book. Next up, we're going back to Rogue again with a new spell they have, which is the 6 mana Unidentified Contract. Which, as many people will know, this is actually a callback to the Unidentified Items mechanic that was in the Kobolds of Catacomb. Mostly the ones that you mostly see play now is like the Unidentified Potion from Priests. But now we get pretty much that's rotating out, though, thanks to Year of the Mammoth going bye-bye in a few weeks, so we're going to get this as our callback card to that expansion. Now, the Unidentified Contract, it's a 6-mana spell that destroys a minion. However, when you draw it into your hand, it will gain a bonus effect. And that bonus effect can be the following. It can be summoning well, actually I could just show you the card that it summons. It summons... Oh, I always forget the name of the card. It's like the guy that has poisonous. I always forget his name. It summons... I have the card, don't I? Don't think I does to that. Oh, I guess I did. Well, it summons a Patient Assassin. So you can have destroy a minion or summon this. It could also be destroy a minion, get 2 coins. It could also be destroy a minion, get a copy of that minion, or destroy a minion, and that minion deals its damage equals to its power to its minions left and right of it. AKA kind of like a betrayal. Now, this is one of the... I mean, to me personally, I liked Kobolds and Catacombs a lot, even though I will admit there was a lot of annoying, problematic cards that was not really fun to play against within the current last year of the meta. But I do find this as one of the really cool callback cards. Now, keep in mind, unconditional removal with upside is nothing to sneeze at. You can get this out even early thanks to cards like Preparation. So, if you need it, you can have a turn-free removal and get the bonus effect, which, hey, turn-free, destroy a minion and get 2 extra coins for turn 4. I would not mind that one bit. Now, the card will probably see play, especially if Control Rogue is possible. The mana cost, though, is potentially the main weakness to the card, especially when we have cards such as, well, Walk the Plank. And even then, if we're not playing Walk the Plank, we could also just play Wanted if we need early game removal. So, we do have options for removal. I mean, heck, also keep in mind we are going to be able to play 2 drops again and have cards like... Oh, where is it? I always forget that when you press... There we go, Sap. We are going to have Sap back in the mana. So that's also going to be a removal spell. So... the cost is definitely a lot. 6 mana, especially with 1 or half of the bonus effects. Not exactly feeling amazing along with the removal. Still... I mean, the ones, if you're curious, the ones that I'm kind of like, well, am I willing to pay 2 mana for that? Is the one where it's Betrayal and the one where you summon or not summon, you get a copy of the minion into your hand, which I'm like, eh. Still, it'll be good to play and to test, and I feel this card is something not to be underestimated. With that, I think the card is actually pretty good. It will probably see play if Control Rogue is a Fiend, or, I mean, heck, I've seen weirder removal spells played. I mean, there were times where people played Assassinate in the meta, so if it's needed, it's needed. Next up, we got a neutral minion, which is the 4-mana Traveling Healer. Hey, a callback to the Totelan that decided to travel. Yay! It is a 4-mana free 2 with Divine Shield, and the battle cry, Restore Free Health. For the record, it is still very nice to see life restoring cards in the meta just in case if needed, especially if the meta gets really, really aggressive. Mostly, though, I think this is a card that's just going to be a very decent arena card, but I am not sure of the constructed viability. Divine Shield is a plus to the card because it does help with trades, which is nice. Still, there are better options for life restoration at the moment. I mean, as long as we still have Year of the Raven in the meta, I think the best 4-drop that you can still be aggressive and still get life gain will probably just be Life Drinker. So as long as Life Drinker is in the meta, this card is just kind of eh. Still, it'll be interesting to see once it rotates if people at least will try this card in their deck, especially if they do need the life gain energy. Or life gain synergy. Brain fart on that one. Still, I think it's a decent card, but it's still going to get my not that great butt. Because, well, it's an average card. It's nothing that you're going to probably throw in your deck unless you feel like you absolutely have to, so yeah. Next up, probably one of my favorite cards, and we're going all the way to Mage for this one. It's one of their legendary minions, which is Khadgar, a 2-mana 2/2. Your cards that summon minions summon twice as many. Okay, I've seen some blokes giving this card some flack, and honestly, I don't see it. Okay, yeah, most powerful mage in the World of Warcraft war, potentially dying to a Murloc Raider is questionable lore-wise. Yes, I get that. But honestly, that effect is extremely powerful, which honestly you could say is reflective to the power of the mage, in my personal opinion. One clarification I do feel need to be made, since I've seen a lot of people misinterpret this card. When cards are played, they are still considered cards on the battlefield, even though they kind of change into whatever they do for the symbol on the battlefield. Whether it's playing a minion and it changes into a little token, or if you play a secret and you get the little question mark and such. They are not like changed into quote-unquote permanents, they are still considered cards, and they are still affected by Khadgar's effect. So, we have to consider every card in Hearthstone that has the summon effect can be affected by this card. Mirror Image, create 4 minions with Taunt. Mirror Entity, oh hey, we play this on the field, opponent plays in a minion, we're going to get not only 1 copy, but 2 copies of it. Spellbender, actually I am really curious to see if this interaction, if it casts the opponent's spells twice when it gets the new targets and such. Splitting Image, they try to attack into Khadgar, create a 2nd copy of Khadgar. And then there's the ones that people obviously are pointing out, such as Astromancer, Unexpected Results, but even Vet's Crow can benefit from Khadgar. And the one that most everybody's talking about, Jan'alai the Dragonhawk. I mean, creating 2 Ragnaroses is ridiculously absurd. And that is just talking about the mage minions. If you look in Hearthstone in general, all the minions that we have in neutral, whether through Death Rattle or through various effects that summon minions, it is freaking absurd. I mean, heck, Khadgar and put a Dalmastadorian. Hey, whenever you draw a minion, you're not going to summon a copy, but you're going to summon a second 1/1 copy. Heck, and Bloodhurf. When a minion dies, you're going to get 2 4/5s. Okay, you're probably not going to play Wheeler Jenkins with Khadgar out, because I don't think you want to get 4 minions for your opponent, but still. Or heck, even with 4 more Champ, create 2 5/5 hotshots. I mean, am I the only one seeing how absurd this can get? Now, it'll be interesting to put it all in perspective. Just the amount of tempo shenanigans this card provide is glorious. I just cannot wait to give it a shot brewing this card. If a summon mage deck was going to exist and have an incentive, this is a pretty dang good incentive. I believe the card will see play, either in a summon mage deck, or even just like a teeny little package to combo with specific summon minion spells. Though, yes, this card, in my opinion, is worthy of the power of this mage, and most likely will probably see competitive play. And yes, I know people are still going to complain about the stats, but hey, let's be frank, from a design perspective, if this was any higher stats, it would have been overpowered. Let's just cut to the chase. Also, one teeny little note to benefit from the low cost and the low stats, but mostly the low cost. Let's say if you need to draw it specifically, if you want to do like a turn 5 combo. If only there was a card that allows us to draw the lowest cost minion from our deck. Just a thought to consider. Just a thought to consider. Next up, going back to Mage again, we're actually going to talk about the Power of Creation. It's an 8 mana spell to discover a 6-cost minion and summon 2 copies of it. Now, getting 2 6 drops for 8 mana is pretty nice. Not great, especially when you look at all the 6 drops we have. But I will say the power level of the card will definitely vary depending on expansions and such, if we get more powerful 6 drops and such. At the current moment, though, our 6 drops are very varied in quality. Maybe you can get 2 Sunkeeper or not Sunkeeper Terrans, 2 Taurens. I always get those mixed up, but I mean, you can get like 2 Argent Commanders, which is decent. You could also get 2 Karen Bloodhoofs. You could also get like 2 Missile Launchers, which is kind of funny actually. 2 Mechanical Whelps, 2 Lord of the Arenas. There's a variety of powerful 6 drops. The one catch to the card is, as many people who know about Discovery does heavily incentivize pretty much class cards over neutral cards. And then when you look at the 6 drops for Mage, well, yeah, 72 copies of these minions are not exactly great. Let's just put it like that. Still, I think the card is at least a safe card to test out, especially if this token summon deck is going to be a thing, especially with synergies with Khadgar. So, I'll still give the rating of good, as mostly just because I think it's a card you can experiment with, but I don't think it's amazing. Like, I'm this close to giving it not that great, but I'm being a little bit biased to the Khadgar synergy, and also the factor that I think the power levels is going to vary with each expansion, especially when we get more 6 drops for more expansions, so you gotta at least keep that in mind. Next up, we got a really cool mage minion, which is the free mana Messenger Raven, which has the battle cry to discover a mage minion. So, okay. So, to put in perspective, minion mages in general can be very varied in power level. Some of them are actually pretty good, such as Sorcerer's Apprentice. Well, Mana Worm when it was still 1 mana, though still discovering it's not bad, I guess, since you don't have to put it in your deck. You can also discover stuff like Pyromaniac, Stargazer Lunar. There's a lot of very ranging of power levels of minions in Mage, but most of them are better in general than the neutral class set of minions. So free mana, which honestly Mage can fill the free drops relatively easy. The free drop's not as competitive as people think. Like, there's some decks that are literally running the Augmented Elec, even though they don't have much shuffle synergies, just to get a decent free drop. So the fact that you can actually replace this for what basically amounts to is just card draw to a basic extent. Though granted, creating cards, specific cards, is a lot more powerful than card draw, as we've been discovering as the Year of Mammoth showed us a lot. So I think this card is a card that mages are going to play, no sweat about it, just because of the overall value you can get from a mage minion in general. So, just for that record, I think it's going to be an amazing card. I think mage decks are going to play the card without a sweat. Also, really decent arena card. Also, the fact that you can discover itself just if you need to put more beast on the battlefield for some random reason. There's that. It kind of has that Tortellin Shellraiser effect almost, or Tortellin Defender. I always get the name of that card wrong. Where the fact that you can discover itself, it can actually help out a lot, since you can actually hopefully discover into a better minion. So, last minute thought on that one. Next up, we're going from Mage all the way to Paladin for a 2-mana spell called the Lightforged Blessing. It's a 2-mana twin spell at common that has give a friendly minion lifesteal. Okay, for the record, let's go to crafting. Boy, have we... Oh, I'm going to take that out. There we go. Boy, were they very careful to not give us this card when a very specific card was in the meta. Oh. There we go. When one very, very, very specific card was in the current meta, which was Blackguard. Now, if Blackguard was still in the meta and Lightforged Blessing, oh boy. Let me put it like this. The reason why you didn't see many give a target creature lifelink or something like that, it's just because of this card alone. But now that this card is rotating out, they can safely put this card, and the fact that they put it on a twin spell is actually really, really cool. Because there's a lot of nifty little synergies that you can do with this card. The one many people are pointing out is the Glass Knight, because hey, a 4-mana 4/3 that, hey, when I attack into something for a trade, I'm still going to get health because of the lifelink, and then also restore the Divine Shield. And since the 4-drop, it's really hard to remove. Well, before we get the Priest removal spell that actually can destroy a 4-drop now. Discarding that, though. There's just also another bunch of decent cards that if you give it lifelink can actually be very, very powerful. Ones that I can think of right off the bat is the Immortal Prelate and then play it on the Undertaker, just so that you can have a Undertaker that constantly has lifelink, which is pretty cool. You can also, even though I don't see why you would, put it on a Paragon of Light to just give a lifelink without the buff. And there's just little other stuff too that when you think about it, like Ghostly Charger, give it lifelink, okay, and Divine Shield, pretty decent. I mean, heck, even cards like this, where if it can become a 8/8 with Taunt, giving that lifelink is decent, though that's a little bit slow in my personal opinion. Or heck, even with Kragor's Endless Army, and then just essentially getting the mechs, which then they have the magnetic upgrades, and then using the Lightforged Blessing on it. I could go on, though the one that most people are obviously pointing out is, well, the no-brainer one, which is the Wildfire Pyromancer combo, which is, oh hey, cast a lifelink on this, deal 1 damage to everything, and gain a lot of life. Nifty! Woo! Now, there's even a lot of cool neutral minions that I can synergize well with that I could think of, but honestly, we'd be here all day. One cute one, though, is Demolisher, which is actually kind of cute. I don't know if effective in the meta, but still kind of cute. But still, and the fact that it's a twin spell, so the fact that when you put this card in your deck, you're getting 2 copies of Lightforged Blessing within your deck to essentially help get multiple minions lifelink, is actually a good card that has a run for its money. I think it will see experimentation, especially in life gain paladin-style decks, and it might see competitive play due to its viability of some powerful minions to give lifelink to, personally. But honestly, I'm not 100% sure on that estimate, so I'm just going to give it the rating of good. I think it's just a fine, overall good card that you can try in your deck without a sweat. Next up, we're going actually all the way to Hunter, where we see their twin spell, which honestly, I was very, very cautious when I knew Hunter was going to get the twin spell mechanic since they were part of Defenders of Dalaran, all because this is still a card in standard rotation. So, what did they got? They got the 6-mana Unleash the Beast, which is the twin spell, summon a 5/5 I always get this name pronunciation wrong. Reavern, I always get that pronunciation wrong, with Rush. Essentially, summon a 5/5 beast with Rush, if we're just saying it. Now, I'll say the card is interesting. On one hand, paying 6 mana for a 5/5 beast with Rush is decent. Like, it's not amazing. It's not like everybody's going to say, overpowered. It's more just, it's decent. It's a very decent play. And the fact that you're spending 6 mana to summon the beast and then draw a card, which is this spell that doesn't have the twin spell on it, it goes up a notch with that mechanic. And just being able to, in theory, use the card to just control the board presence and the potential synergy with other cards that Hunter have, like Beast Space synergies, or heck, even giving Rush thanks to Tundra Rhino, or card draw if that's ever relevant. I mean, I guess if you can protect it, you could in theory play this on turn 5, and then turn 6 just draw a card and do that, and naturally draw a card and a twin spell draw a card. But mostly I think the ones I've been thinking of right off the bat is just Dire Frenzy synergies. Also, the obvious synergy is if you cast a couple copies of it and then play Zujin, you get a bigger board presence and such. So those synergies are there. So it'll be a fun card to experiment with at the very least, but it's not that exciting. It's more kind of practical. I think many people are going to underrate the card because it's just not really exciting. It's like 6 mana to summon a 5/5 beast with Rush. Woo! But honestly, with the amount of beast synergies within Hunter in general, I think people will at the very least toy with the card, especially in Sujin, to help still keep Sujin a playable card within the standard format. And with that, I think the card is good. Not amazing, not great, just honestly just good. Next up, we got a legendary all the way for the Druid, and this legendary is fascinating. It's the 2 mana Keeper Steladris. I do not know how to pronounce the second name, but essentially it's a 2 mana 2/3 that has, after you cast a choose 1 spell, add copies of both choices to your hand. Now, one note I will mention for those who have not watched the stream, they actually had a token-based deck where they had Keeper Steladris played, and then they played... Or not even... No, actually this card wasn't even played. They had a moment where they played Power the... Actually, I could just show you the spell. Like, I think it was, if I recall correctly, they were playing the road deck, and they played Power the Wild. And it was cool to see Power the Wild, but I wasn't familiar with the new art they had on the Power the Wild. They actually had some new art for the choices where... In the original, and probably still currently before they updated with the expansion, the old where the 2 choices had the same art of, well, this Panther on here. I was kind of wondering why they did the new art choice, but now that I see Keeper Steladris, it just makes perfect sense. Now, I'll say this. The effect is so cool. Making choose 1 spells that you put in your deck now become a source of semi-card draw is ridiculously nifty. Getting extra spells might synergize also with Auction Master. I can also see it toyed with in token-style decks due to the popularity of specific choose cards such as, well, Power of the Wild, obviously. The only catch is, I think, with the card is the amount of choose 1 cards in the meta. Currently, it's not exactly enough to make a deck fully based around this card. Still, there are cards that we're going to be seeing that do actually... We do have one more choose 1 card coming from the expansion, which we'll get to that once we get to that. So we might have maybe enough. Still, I think it's a fun legendary to at least toy with, and it's a card to keep in mind when future choose 1 cards, aka the one we're going to be talking about shortly, are introduced in the meta. One thing to note, this card is potentially absurd and wild. I don't know about its competitive viability in the Wild format, since I don't really play much Wild, as many people know. But with the amount of choose 1 cards in Wild, the possibilities are endless. I feel it could be potentially very silly in that format. Still, with that in mind, I still get the card rating of good. This is actually kind of a really cool and fine legendary to add to the Druid archetype, which they kind of needed a cool legendary, especially when most of their essential tools having kind of been, well, nerfed. So it's kind of nice to see them being encouraged into other archetypes with legendaries such as this. Good job, Blizzard. That's awesome. Next up, we're going to Paladin again for a secret, which the secret that they have this time around is No Surrender, which is whenever your opponent casts a spell, it triggers a secret, which when it does, it gives your minions, aka all minions you control on the board, 2 health. Honestly, this is a pretty awesome secret for Paladin. The card might be effective in token-centric aggro or even mid-range kind of decks for the hell of your units to be protected against like board wipes or very powerful removal spells that are damage-based. Granted, it doesn't protect you from stuff like Identify Contract. Keep that in mind. I mean, it is one of those cards that I feel like we really wanted to see cards like Ballerina Sentry see play in the meta. And also, it's just, there's even just the nifty factor that you can just on turn 2 play, well, let's think about this. You can play Secret Keeper, and what is the, let's say you're going against Mage, what is the common play when you play Secret Keeper and play a Secret on turn 2? Oh, they're just going to Frostbolt it. Well, if the Secret you cast is no surrender, sure, it's still going to be frozen, but your minion survives. So hopefully then your minion survives, and then you can play more Secrets to help buff it up significantly. So it's powerful in those type of synergies, which is really, really cool. The only catch with the card is there is also, let's not cut to the chase here, there are non-spell ways to deal with problematic minions, especially paladin-based minions. I mean, the most popular one is obviously Dragonmore Sculpture, and there's even more target-based removal that we are going to get within the expansion, like with Unidentified Contract and even stuff that could even see potential play in the meta once Year of the Mammoth rotates out. So, there are non-spell ways for opponents to interact with minions that will not trigger the secret, which is going to be kind of awkward and make the secret kind of a dead secret in some games. I am really curious to see its competitive viability. I'm not sure, but I think it would still be a fun card to test out at the very least. And with that, I get the rating of the card being good. Next up, we're going all the way to Priest with one of their more peculiar 2-drops and their way to generate lackeys in the expansion, or at least one of their ways, which is the Evil Conscriptor. A 2-mana 2/2 that has a simple Death Rattle to add a lackey to your hand. The stats are decent for a 2-drop. They're not amazing, like we can compare the 2-drops and, well, you see all the stats for 2-drops at the moment, so 2 mana for a 2/2 is just, they're decent. But still, the fact that you do get a lackey from the Death Rattle is pretty nice, and I could also see potentially janky shenanigans with Spirit of the Dead. I mean, heck, you play Spirit of the Dead turn 1, then you play the Evil Conscriptor, you trade, it dies, and then you get a copy of the Conscriptor back into your deck. That's actually a pretty cool synergy, in my personal opinion. However, it's just, there's not really much to talk about it. It's just a decent 2-drop that if you want to play it, you can play it. Though, to be fair, there could be potentially a lot more better 2-drops that you can play once the rotation happens, or even 2-drop spells that you probably will play. So, you can cut it easily, but I think it's still a safe card to at least experiment with. With that, I get the rating of good. Next up, on to the lackeys again. This time we're going to Warlock's Lackey Generator for common, which is the Evil Genius, which is a 2-mana minion that has the battle cry to destroy a friendly minion to add 2 random lackeys to your hand. Still, just another decent 2-drop that can be used as a good card for Zeus-style Warlock decks, which they are definitely encouraging a lot in this expansion. And just paying a minion for 2 lackeys is a pretty good payoff, especially if it's a minion that has synergies for it dying, like ones I can think of right off the bat that doesn't really see much play, but might actually see play just with the factor that this expansion, that with this minion, hey, you get Swamp Dragon Egg, play that turn 1, then play this turn 2, you destroy the Swamp Dragon Egg, you get the 2 lackeys, but you also get a random dragon in your hand, which is really, really cool. So in egg-centric like decks, that's actually pretty powerful. Now, overall, that's really the only things I could think of. It's just a decent card. I say it's just good. It might see some competitive play, especially if Zoo Warlock is a thing, but still, it's alright. It's not the most amazing card in the world, but it's practical, and practical cards do see competitive play. Next up, we got a legendary. We got the second legendary for Hunter, which is Varisa Windrunner. A 7-mana 5/6 that has the battle cry to equip, oh, forgive me for pronouncing this wrong, Foredel, the Stars Fury, which is a 3-mana 2/3 weapon that has the ability that after your hero attacks, gain spell damage +2 this turn. I mean, it's a very interesting / weird capstone card for a spell-centric Hunter deck. Still, 7 mana for a 5/6 is alright. It's not great, but it's alright. But let's cut to the chase. You're pretty much paying this for the weapon. And the weapon is actually to make your spell-based removal slash damage more effective late game. It's a pretty potent ability. I mean, heck, play this, turn 8, play a cheap beast and attack, and then maybe say 2 Camille, blah. Wow, brain fart tonight. Sorry, been a long work day. So you play a cheap beast, then you attack with your weapon, then you can just do, like, say, for example, 2 kill commands, which deals 14 damage to the face. That is pretty effective, in my personal opinion. Now, the main con of the card, it is prone to weapon removal, and I think, which is a very high cost for the card. But one pro that I will mention, that now just seeing it, I kind of am dumbfounded I didn't realize this. You can actually play Blood Scout Strategist the turn after you play that to actually discover a spell-based damage spell. Huh. Some of the fiends you just realized, that's kind of why I have this Hearthstone client out in general while doing this card review. It's just sometimes you're going to see cards that you're like, oh wait, it synergizes with this. I should have did more thought about that. Which is really cool. Still, I think it's a fun card to test in your decks. I don't think it's going to be necessarily competitively viable until we get more spell damage-based spells in general. Still, I think it's a good card. It's a fun, flavorful card. It's a fun capstone to build around too if you want to, so... Or even if you just want to build a package based around it, so it's a fine card. Next up, one of the cutest cards they have in the expansion, the 2-mana, 2-1 with Rush, Hinch Clan Hogseed. It also has the Death Rattle to summon a 1-1 Murloc, which, seriously, that Murloc is adorable. Now, at first look at this card, I thought it was just going to be kind of a cute pack filler. However, the more I think about it, an early game rush unit are cards that you need to at least keep a cautious eye on. The card's great early game to help control early game boards, and the 1-1 you get from it is nice. It allows the minion to be sticky, which is good. And also, it can synergize. Since it's a beast, there is beast-based synergies to keep in the back of your brain. Like, ones I can think of right off the bat is, well, yeah. Still, the one... the catch of the card is, honestly, it's a card that's going to be great early game. Oh, wait, you can actually Revenge of the Wild it. So yeah, there's even little synergies like that. I guess the fact that I should be considered that there is a lot of more beast-based synergies, so maybe it's a card that actually could see play a lot more in Hunter than I thought. Though the catch, as I was going to state, is that while it's a great early game minion to play to help control the board presence and such, the later you play it, the more awkward it kind of gets. I still think people will try it, and I think it has slight potential for competitive viability just for the factor that it's a decent 2-drop to help control the board presence. Not amazingly control the board presence, but it's decent enough. It is still a cool arena card, though. I'm not sure if you would put it in a deck with Beast Murloc synergy per se, but it's a fun food for thought. Especially when we have cards to help draw that Murloc. Well, no, wait. Blah. What am I thinking? Draw Beast, which is like, for example... Oh, I always get the Hunter card that does that. Master's Call, I believe, if my recollection is correct. Yes. Master's Call, which allows us to draw the Beast from our deck, so... Though, granted, that does get into the argument of if you're willing to play this late game. I guess maybe if you have a Dire Frenzy on it. Maybe. It'll be interesting. I mean, there are better 2-drops, but I could see some decks that synergize with the Death Rattle or the Beast synergy still play the card and give it a shot. I'm still going to be cautious and give it my rating of not that great, but this is one of those where I feel like I could be wrong. Next up, we go into the neutral legendaries again. And this one is interesting. It's the 8-mana Geppetto Joybuzz, so a play on Pinocchio, which is an 8-mana Sit-Sits, which, okay, 8 mana for a Sit-Sits, it's kind of bad. But you're really doing this for its battle cry, which the battle cry is draw 2 minions from your deck, set their attack, health, and cost to 1 mana. So, this is actually kind of a cute card in the sense that, oh hey, it's this puppet master drawing cards from the deck and making little puppets, which is kind of a cute little kind of like mechanics wise. It's really, really cute. However, the card is concerning. The card's potential in combo-centric decks is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, there are some very, very, very powerful late-game minions that you don't mind, dare we say, having it for 1 mana because you're just doing it for either its battle cry. I mean, I could just go through all the late-game minions here. I think the most popular one that people are obviously talking about is, well, the synergies with Malygos to having a 1/1 Malygos and, oh, do overkill combo shenanigans. But then there's even some stuff coming in the meta, such as Togwaggle, the new Hagatha. I mean, heck, the one that I'm going to have fun with trying with in Shaman is, besides Hagatha, is also playing it with, say, this little guy. But still, there is, I mean, heck, even Antonidas. I can actually keep going with all the 1-drop minions. The high-cost minions that become 1/1 drops is actually going to be pretty decent. The only catch with the card, and the reason why I don't think it's, like, overpowered and is going to break the meta, is, well, even combo decks and control decks in general will rely on either early game to even just mid-game minions for, at the very least, to keep board control presence. I mean, are there metas where there were heavy spell-centered decks that relied on just a few late-game minions? Yes, no denying that. But even then, like, for example, one of the more combo decks, Control Priest, still, the ones that relied on Prophet Velen and Malygos, still run Northshire Cleric. They still had to run Fiends that allowed them to draw cards and even just be able to control the board presence early game. And when you draw those cards with Geppetto, it feels very anticlimactic. Overall, just with that fact alone, I think it's a safe card to test in decks because of that power level of being able to draw a late game minion with it. But it is definitely going to get my little notch of concerned. Be cautious, because this is a card that if someone can make the right deck for it, it can be potentially very obnoxious. Still, I think the card is good. I definitely want to test it out, and oh, I am so excited to play it in Shuttle Walk, but oh, I am really hoping this doesn't become a competitively viable card. Oh, I hope that's not the case. Next up, we go back to Paladin again, and actually going to a way to actually be able to play this card now, which is them encouraging dragon-based synergies, which with the free mana Bronze Herald, which is a free mana free 2 dragon that has the Death Rattle to add 2 4/4s dragons to your hand. Now, if Dragon Paladin for Standard needed a card, at least for this current Standard cycle, this card helps the deck to become viable. It's an early game dragon with a death rattle that has an upside. The factor that when it dies, you get 4/4 dragons, which is really good because most dragon decks in general, especially those in the current meta and probably going to be in the rotated meta, still rely on cards that are just have benefits when you have a dragon in hand. Like the one I could think of right off the bat. Let's see when we get to it. Like there's cards like Fire Tree Witch Doctor. There's even cards late game such as Crowd Roaster, etc., etc. And the fact that with this card, both being early games, so you're able to at least keep it in your early hand without a sweat, and the fact that the Death Rattle puts dragons into your hand, which makes these cards activate a lot more easier, that's really cool. Oh, also, one thing to keep in mind, you could actually draw it with Countless Ashmore if you need to, which I don't know if you need to, but it's something to consider. Just the fact that it synergizes with those cards, and overall, it's just a fine free drop. Like, it's not amazing, but the Death Rattle does save the card from just being pretty good. I think it's a pretty fine free drop in non-dragon decks in general, because just the value you get from the 2 4/4 dragons, so you can have board presence, is nothing to sneeze at. So with that factor alone, I think this is going to be the linchpin to help out a new deck archetype. Plus, also, I think it's just a fine free drop the Paladins can test without a sweat. actually really, really good free drop, to be quite frankly honest. The card will likely see competitive play, which in that case, it gets my rating of amazing. Probably the best common they revealed so far, in my opinion. I hope I'm not wrong on that, but still, it's a really good card. Next up, going back to Paladin again, we got the epic that complements with the card, the 5 mana Dragon Speaker. The battle cry has give all dragons in your hand +3/+3, and it's a free 5. Okay, just to be clear, this card will probably just be an auto-include in Dragon Paladin decks just because of the value of that battle cry. However, it is worth to note that hand buff in the past for Paladin has never been amazing. There are some instances where hand buffs can be competitive or hand buff cards can be competitive, but most of the time, hand buff has been very, very anticlimactic. I mean, to put in perspective, we've seen cards like Rollstone Technician in the meta, and even the fact that they gave all your minions +2/+2, it's seen zilch play. Mostly because to be fair, most of the Paladin decks, besides some control Paladin decks, were very, very heavy on the aggro to mid-range aspect of it, or token base, so you didn't really rely on holding cards in your hand, so it's something to keep in mind. Still, the fact that now we're going into a different meta, maybe hand buff will be a lot more consistent, I'm not sure. The one con of this card, though, is that it relies dragons being in your hand for the battle cry. And as I stated before, most dragon decks are going to run non-dragon cards because they are very heavily synergistic. Case in point, going back to the Fire Tree Witch Doctor and such. And maybe even cards that are coming from the expansion might have dragon-based synergies that are not dragons in themselves. Which makes the battle cry itself giving only dragons that buff kind of anticlimactic. Now, true, the Bronze Herald combo with this package is pretty neat, where if the Bronze Herald dies, you get 2 4/4 dragons, which then when you play this on turn 5, you again get 2 7/7 dragons. But keep in mind, if your minion died, you probably want to play one of the 4/4 dragons just to be on curve, on tempo. So the factor then, it's just only going to buff, technically speaking, maybe just only one dragon with a +3/+3 stat. Which, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at, but it's nothing to write home about either. I'm curious to see if this will see play. I think it's one of those cards where I know Bronze Herald will see play, no sweat. But I'm not sure about Dragon Speaker. I think it would still be tried out as a package in general the first few weeks when people try Dragon Paladin. But I think many people will cut it out, especially if their decks doesn't rely too much on a lot of dragons. So they don't have the awkwardness. I mean, we have better turn 5 plays, like we have Ciliats, for Pete's sakes. We have a lot of better turn 5 plays. I'm just saying that right off the bat. Even though the power of that hand buff is pretty significant. So, I'm going to be cautious with this card and just say not that great. But it is one of those I am admitting that if you do go full-on dragon with your deck, then it can be a pretty decently powerful card. I will admit to that. Next up, we're going to Priest with a spell that many people were salty once they seen it, but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, it's fine. Which is the 9 mana Mass Resurrection, which is a 9 mana spell that simply resurrects different friendly minions. Like I said, the card's just alright. 9 mana for free random friendly minions is a lot of mana. Let's just cut to the chase. It's a lot of mana to cast a spell. But I could see this being tried in Wall Police because, hey, getting more of your taunt walls out late game is not bad. However, that deck is also losing a majority of their early game revival spells, which could... I'm not sure if it will kill the deck, but it'll at least definitely alter the deck design to a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how people are going to try the deck out, or even if they're going to try stuff like, say, Prey. One thing I can see people trying out is like trying the Clone Gallery, get a bunch of value-based minions based off Zerod's Cloning Gallery, then when your minions die, then you play Resurrection, and hopefully you get free of your biggest minions out of it. Maybe. Though that's just hoping for the best. And wishing that everything goes according to plan, personally. Honestly, like I said, I can only see this in a value-centric priest deck. Besides that, I think it's too high cost, in my personal opinion, and it gets my rating of not that great, but just for that. And for the people who are worrying that this is going to be the card to make Big Priest and Wild still more obnoxious, I don't think even Big Priests in Wild are going to play this card, because just that cost. 9 mana is a lot. Let's just keep that in mind. Now we're going on to Shaman, which is just gave me one of my little favorite cards of the expansion that's a common, or, yeah, not common, rare. Yeah, I saw the misinterpreted symbol there. One of the rare drops, and hey, let's keep our 1-drops in mind when we see this card. It is the Sludge Slipper, which is a 1-mana 2/1 that has a battle cry to add a lackey to your hand and overload 1. Yes! Okay, a 1-mana 2/1 that creates a lackey is pretty powerful. Now, there is a catch that, yes, the overload 1 is problematic, but it's not like we're playing a Dust Devil. It's not like we have to, pretty much if we play this turn 1, our turn 2 play is dead. You still have 1 mana floating, which you can still use to either play another one of your 1-drops, or even play a spell for 1 mana, or heck, even play the lackey itself. Heck, you might even just play Sludge Slipper on turn 2, and then get the lackey synergy, whatever you get from it, since some of the lackeys do benefit a lot from if you do have a minion on the battlefield already, so that's something to be considerate. I think this is just, the stats are also aggressive enough for early game, and I also think it can be good late game when you get the lackeys and synergize with other cards, or even just synergize with the board state that it is late game in general. Overall, I think it's a good card. Also, more support for Lackey Shudderwock, so yay! I am going to have fun playing with this Murloc in the new standard. I like Murlocs, and I do like playing this Murloc, though I don't know if I would play it in a Murloc deck per se, but I still want to play this card. Just because for Lackey Shudderwock in general. Next up, we have a Druid spell, and as I said before, we were going to get more Choose One cards, and this one is actually a pretty cool one. It's called the Crystal Power, a 1-mana Druid spell that has Choose One. Deal 2 damage to a minion, or restore 5 health. Still, versatile cards are always something to keep an eye on, and this is a very versatile card. And the fact that you can use this as removal or a recovery spell is actually pretty neat. It combos with the new Druid Legendary, obviously, because if you have the new Druid Legendary out, then cast whatever part of the spell you need, whether it's as a removal or if you need to restore the 5 health. Then you will get 2 copies of this spell split into your hand, which is really nice. And also, we got to keep in mind factor that it's a cheap spell, which synergizes with stuff like Auction Master and such, so we got to keep that in the back of our brains. Overall, I think this is a cool addition for the Druid class, and that life gain is going to become a little bit more significant, especially if we are going against either an aggressive meta, which then it will be nice to have this card, or if we need to synergize it with cards such as the Crystal Stag, which is a 5-mana 4/4 with Rush and has the battle cry, if you restored 5 health, aka, hey, if you casted Crystal Power and restored 5 health to you, presuming you can restore that health, presuming you're not at full health, keep that in mind. If you restored 5 health this game, summon a copy of this. So, if we meet this sort of restrictive requirement, we will get essentially a 5-mana 8/8 Rush. Which, that's pretty good. That is really good, actually. But let's just go through the analysis of it. By its base, a 5-mana 4/4 with Rush is actually pretty decent. It can help control the board early, and being able to get an extra one if you meet the health restoration requirement, which is easy with the Crystal Powers and other health restoration cards in the meta. It makes the card good early, and also can make it good late, especially if you meet the health restoration requirement and get the extra one. Just being able to either destroy a very high power, high toughness minion, or even just control the board against like a wide board with this card is just very nice, especially since you could just get the 2 4/4s, attack into one minion, attack into the other minion, control the board. It also synergizes with Beast Matter centric cards, which there's not that many in the meta, or at least not that many yet. It also creates 2 minions, so maybe you can, like, turn 7, play that, and then play a Power of the Wild to get, like, 2 5/5s. But the one card I thought of right off the bat with this card is it might actually make Druid want to play specifically... Let me get to it. I always miss the card art, but... It might actually make them play Untamed Beastmaster, just for the simple fact that you can get 2 5/5s with Rush, which is, for 5 mana, ridiculously powerful. It'll be interesting to see if a Beast Druid-like deck exists because of this card. I'm not sure. I could even just see some people just playing the Health Restoration spell and just this and just have the little package itself just to get this minion to have the Rush package just to control mid-game and such. Still, I think many people will try this card without a sweat, and with that, that's the epiphany of a good card. Whew. I think that's all the cards that have been revealed so far as of this recording. Sorry if this video is a long one. I just had to cover through all of that. Hopefully the videos will be a lot more shorter, especially since mostly the cards are going to be revealed. It's not as much as the cards that were revealed in this video with the time gap. Whew. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my 2 cents on the cards that have been revealed. I'll do another video upcoming Saturday, and then next Wednesday, and vice versa, until all the cards have been revealed. I hope you all have a lovely day. This is LevDev, signing out.